A fine morning to each and everyone.
Ma'am,
Mukam karoti vach pangum langayate girim. Yatkrupa tamaham devam. Krishnam vande jagadgurum. I am Mrs. Bhavyavi, Associate Professor, Department of ANC, NCET. Take this greatest pleasure to welcome all the dignitaries, teaching fraternity of NCET, dear participants across the country to the AICTE sponsored 6-day short-term training program on applications of NI LabVIEW Phase 1. I would like to welcome our beloved principal, Dr. Jitendra Mungara, Principal, NCET. I welcome you, sir.
thank you, ma'am.
I'm very delighted to welcome the person behind this STTP to happen today. That is none other than Dr. Nagesh Kehan, HOD of EC Department, NCET. I warmly welcome you, sir.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir. I'm pleasured to welcome the distinguished speaker of the first session of this STTP, Dr. D. Ganga, Professor, NIT Nagaland, to this STTP. I welcome you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I cordially welcome Dr. Rohit Hess, coordinator of this STTP. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
I wholeheartedly welcome you all to this 6 days STTP program. I welcome you all. What you get by achieving your goals is not as important as what you become by achieving your goals. With this great saying, I would be honored to call upon Dr. Jitendra Mungara, Principal, NCET, to address the gathering. Over to you, sir. Jitendra, sir.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor Bhavya, once again, and I'm going to start. A very good morning, one and all. Thank you for joining us for a technical faculty development program for LabVIEW, which is sponsored by the AICTE. And the respected, the dignitaries, participants, and our founder chairman, Sri J.V. Rangaraju and Srimati Sri Garu, and CEO Sri Chaitanya Varma, COO Srimati Banu Chaitanya in their absentia, and directors Dr. Desikachar and Gopala Krishna, and my dear colleagues. So, on behalf of we are welcoming you to this prestigious AICT Technical FDP. This is sponsored by, as I told you, AICTE, and and this is very important program or FDP to all the technical faculty members. Undoubtedly, it is a great honor for me too to be a part of this event today on this platform. As it is not physically conducting this particular FDP program, but because of online, we are planning to conduct this TFDP, that means Technical Faculty Development Program, into 3 phases. That is, now first phase is right now which is going on, and second and third one. So we are going to conduct in coming within another 1 month of time. That is how our electronics department people, Dr. Nagesh HOD, under his supervision, the things are going to take part. We are expecting nearly 300 faculty members are going to utilize this particular technical faculty program across the, not only from the country, and there are several faculty members registered for this program from the outside of India. And this type of the workshops, interactions are really important to the academicians and scholars to enhance the skill sets, the practical knowledge, in particular on the tools like LabVIEW. The LabVIEW, you know, all that is a product of NI. I need not to tell much about the LabVIEW, but anyway, the laboratory virtual instrument using Workbench is a short term that it as a LabVIEW, which is from NI, developed by the NI. It is a system design platform and development environment centric and visual programming language centric purpose. And as you know, this is established in the year, if I am correct, 1986, by using the language, the G. Don't confuse. G is not for the Google Stand language. It is a special language which is used in the LabVIEW tool. So, in short, what we are going to have in this FDP and what for we are going to study all these things and how you are going to utilize and how best that you are going to make use of this platform. These are all very important for you for these 5 days. Coming and going is not the important. The importance of this particular FDP is how much that you are going to gain the knowledge. That matters a lot. When you are going to spend a lot of time in this FDP. You just multiple the transferring of the knowledge in terms of the multiplication. Like, you know, for example, if you are going to spend 8 hours of time in this per day basis, 8 into 8, that much of the knowledge that you need to bring into your side. That is how you have to calculate on you have to give yourself accountability for this much of time that when you spend, how much knowledge transfer has happened at your side. That everyone should think about in that way. Otherwise, just for for curriculum purpose or biodata or keeping in your biodata, for all those things not necessary. But the thing is, the reality comes only when you study, only when you gain the knowledge, only when you learn the things to your end. That matters a lot. So I request all the people to understand the meaning of the FDP, the way how the AICT is spending money. That all, this is for your purpose. They are spending the money for transferring the knowledge and are they developing the skill set in so and so particular tools or area or any research topics or whatever it is. This type of the FDPs, it is compulsory to all the academicians, to the research scholars and any other, those who are interested to develop their own skill sets to their side. As we all needs to know that what for this LabVIEW is really means for. It really means for. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You're clear.
Yeah. Yes. So the thing is the data acquisition, the instrument control, the industrial automation, which is coming up or already in the industry 4.0. These are going to help towards the development of the global activities, the technology side. When technology is going to grow, or if you want to improve the technology, or if you want to refine the technologies, that you need to have this type of the tools and you have to get the knowledge gain. The knowledge, you need to experience this type of the tools in your life. And from you only, it is going to transfer to the end users, that is to the student community. You have to make use of the facilities which are aligned in the LabVIEW that you have to take from this FDP. The beauty of the LabVIEW is developed for all sort of the platforms, like operating systems, OS, MS, or Macintosh, or whatever it is, Unix flavors. There are 11 flavors are there in the Unix side. This LabVIEW is going to work on all the 11 flavors. That is the beauty of the LabVIEW. And really, it is designed very well. It is a hassle-free to learn anything because it is open. It is compatible with every platform. That is an advantage with the LabVIEW. And of course, at the end of the day, what are you going to achieve and what are the benefits that you are going to get from the LabVIEW FDPs or FDP or lesson, seminar or workshop or whatever you call it. From LabVIEW, these are the things that you can expect to your end. Interfacing to the devices. Now, if you take the IoT, there are a number of instruments are coming in to the world. Everything is in IoT now because automation. So to develop the interfaces is very much required. See, the whole industry in the globe, the only thing they are doing is the interface developments. There are example, only one I can tell you, CGI, Common Gateway Interface. That is the highest developer, the interfaces for any type of the devices. Of course, every company is doing, but the top end is the CGI. So it is going to help you, LabVIEW for you, to develop the interfacing to the devices. So prototypically at the beginning and at the end, after that, you are going to develop the real-time scenario of the interfaces to the multiple devices. That is one advantage that you are going to get. And code generation and compilation, you are going to write the code, but sometimes if you give the framework, the version which was released recently, may even during the lockdown 5.0, from there, you can see that some few frameworks are developed by them and for the code generations. From their code generations and compilations and will be taken care automatically. That is the biggest advantage in the latest LabVIEW that you got in. So that is for compilation, it is very, very good. Hassle-free compilation you will get that very easily. So the another advantage that you have, the more number of libraries like Python has the thousands of the libraries. LabVIEW also, if you compare with other, as far as it goes, scientifically, and as far as the research is concerned, in electronics communication and other stuff, other areas, the LabVIEW has a very large number of the libraries, which is very, very helpful for the researchers and the students. And also, you can have the other advantage, you can run the concurrent way, that is parallel programming is allowed here. You can run the number of programs at a time. That is another advantage that you are going to get. The ecosystem development is possible here. It is very, very possible. And the advantage that students and the researchers and the academicians are going to get because of the community blocks. The community blocks are definitely going to provide you good exchange of the knowledge transfer, knowledge ideas. These are all possible when you are aiming to work in the LabVIEW side. So these are all the couple of advantages. I don't know much about the other advantages, but as far as me is concerned, I know few of this which I told you here. So my dear participants, I request you to make use of the platform of these 5 days and take it the optimal way you have to gain the knowledge. That is your responsibility to take it to your side. And even at this time, during the lockdown and during these pandemic situations, the things are not. As I told you, even in the lockdown period, the LabVIEW is working very effectively in their companies. That is how in May, and the month of May in 2020, they have released the beta version to all the viewers, to all the people. The beta version released means we can expect how many researchers, how many professors, how many academicians, how many students are working on that. It's really great of the LabVIEW. That's what I can say. So this is what I wanted to say in this. In this event, and thanks to everyone for participating in this prestigious NCET prestigious Technical Faculty Development Program, which is sponsored by AICTE. So I wish you that I want to give that, take care of yourself, stay safe, stay in touch with the NCET, because NCET is something beyond your expectations. We are always here to give the best to the society. We are always the best in transferring the knowledge to the needy people, that is to the academicians, to the students and research scholars through in terms of seminars, workshops. So I hope that we are going to meet physically in 2021 in some other workshops or seminar conferences like that. But keep in touch with us. Thank you very much. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk few words on this platform. And I want to appreciate Dr. Nagesh, who is heading the Department of Electronics and Communication, the coordinator, Dr. Rohit, and Bhavya, Anka, and other faculty members. I don't remember the names, and whoever worked a lot for this program. I appreciated once again to all, and all the best. God bless you and Jai Hind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your information about the necessity, the importance, and the advantages of LabVIEW, and briefing about the intent of organizing this FDP. And surely, as your wish, the knowledge sharing will be happening throughout the FDP. And really, your knowledge is commendable, sir, with any upgrading technology or anything. And we are truly honored to have you on this platform. Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you very much, Principal, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, one and all. Thank you very much. I'm leaving the meeting now. I am starting to the college now. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you. One has to be positive. When you are positive, good things will happen. With this great saying, I would like to call Ms. Jyoti, Assistant Professor, Department of ECE, NCET, to introduce the eminent speaker of the first session to the participants. Over to you, Jyoti, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, you can proceed.
Yes. I, Jyoti, Session Coordinator and Assistant Professor, Department of ECE, Nagarjuna College of Engineering and Technology, would now like to introduce today's session speaker, Dr. D. Ganga, Professor, NIT, Nagaland. Dr. D. Ganga has completed ME in Electrical Drives and Embedded Control at College of Engineering, Guindy campus in the year 2007. She has obtained PhD in Real-Time Predictive Analytics at NIT Nagaland in the year 2018 and is currently serving as Assistant Professor in the Department of Electrical and Electronics Engineering at NIT Nagaland. She has 15 years of teaching experience. Her research areas are condition monitoring of machines, Internet of Things, data analytics for electrical applications, and industrial automation. She has authored research papers in various international journals such as IEEE, Springer, COMADEM, etc., and international conferences. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks a lot, Jyoti, ma'am, for your spick and span introduction of today's chief guest and the speaker for the first session of this FTP. Sometimes you will never know the value of a moment until it becomes a good memory. Now, with this, I am honored and I am delighted, and I wholeheartedly request Speaker of the Day, Dr. D. Ganga, ma'am, to take over the session. Over to you, Ganga, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Start
you.
my presentation. Is it visible, ma'am?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, it is.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Clear.
Yeah. Yeah, good morning, one and all faculty who are present here. I'm glad to meet you all today in this faculty development program. And faculty development program is quite important because we shift our paradigm from teaching to learning. And it's known that only a good learner will always become an inspiring teacher, right? So here we have assembled to discuss about LabVIEW and its applications, right? So you are here to learn. I don't know, many of you, since all of you are in the working, so many of you could have expertise in LabVIEW already through your research, through your classes, or through your students, and through a lot of training programs. Already you might have got expertise in LabVIEW, but still there are some faculty who don't know about LabVIEW also, but still once you complete, the importance of FDP comes once when we complete the FDP, we should be able to take over the learnings into the research aspect, right? So now I was given the topic to discuss about LabVIEW for industry 4.0, right? So now, so far, we have been using, as most of the things have been introduced by Honorable Principal itself about the last, most of the significant features about the LabVIEW was given by the Principal sir itself in a nice and precise manner. And LabVIEW has been in the usage for a lot of years at different stages as per the advancements. They also release a lot of versions, and we have a lot of functionalities to execute, a lot of functionalities to develop applications. And now, as we know, we are into the era of Industry 4.0, right? Now, before going into the role of LabVIEW on Industry 4.0 technology, first let me give a brief overview about LabVIEW. As we know, LabVIEW is an acronym for Laboratory Virtual Instrument Engineering Workbench. It is an environment. It is an environment in which you could develop graphical coding and execute that coding to meet some testing, measurement, or control applications. So LabVIEW is used, as it is well known that LabVIEW is used by a lot of engineers and scientists for test, measurement, and control applications, because it has variety of features and a lot of tools are available in such a way that we could have interactive assistance, and also it has a lot of modularity where you could configure different kinds of interfaces, right? So here interfaces in the sense you could the interfaces range from like you can say from basic communication interface to currently executed Industry 4.0 communication interface. It has all the features. Apart from that, it has a lot of modules. As you know, it has a lot of processing modules. It has more scientific modules which could execute AI algorithms. All those things, all those steps are available in LabVIEW. So it has been used by a lot of engineers for development of applications. The way in which the LabVIEW is quite different from other platforms is Like you can develop applications using graphical programming language, which is here in LabVIEW, it uses the G code, right? So graphical programming language, you have variety of programming languages, and the LabVIEW G code, right? And they have integrated, of course, programming language. We know when we go for programming language, it has to be converted into a machine code, and it has to be linked for execution. And whenever we do programming, it has to be debugged. So all these stuffs, all these tools are associated in this environment itself. So the one of the unlike the other quite different from other compilers, it has an integrated compiler on compiler. So I will tell you in the later part about it. And so ultimately, it is going to, as the name itself indicates, that it's laboratory virtual instrumentation engineering workbench. It is a virtual instrument engineering workbench, they call, right? They have coined the name like that. So obviously virtual instrument means any system, any device that you connect with LabVIEW, this particular environment will be capable of adding more modularity to that system by interconnecting that particular system with external environment. And also, it can understand the status of the system by measuring it through advanced visualization tools, right? So, and also it is capable of controlling the system by generating control signals as per the computations made. So that is why they call it as a virtual instrument engineering workbench. So the ultimate purpose of this LabVIEW environment itself, from the name itself, we could easily comprehend that it is going to work on scientific computations and also advanced measurement and control. So here, that is why always whenever we see about the introduction about the LabVIEW, they used to call it is used for instrument control, data acquisition, because any system, if you want to, the purpose is to develop a virtual instrument, so which is capable of acquiring the system data, displaying the system data in such a way that it could be visualized elaborately and in a detailed manner. Whatever the processing that has been done, it could be easily visualized with a lot of graphics. And that is why they they say, whenever you see about the LabVIEW, whenever you study about LabVIEW, you will come across these terms, that is instrument control, data acquisition, and then pre-processing and post-processing of the acquired data. Because the purpose is a virtual instrument, laboratory virtual instrument working bench. You are doing the application in for this purpose only, right? So you have to acquire the data, and the data acquired should be noiseless and should have should be noiseless and should be almost pure. And also, so if you want to, if these attributes have to be met, then obviously we need to do post-processing of the data. We need to do pre-processing of the data before we do scientific computations on the data. So all these features are made available in the LabVIEW through different modules that are present, like signal processing modules are there, and filtering module, a lot of communication modules, signal processing modules, a lot of modules are there. Probably if you are attending this faculty development program all through these 6 days, you will be getting a broad view about all these modules, its functionalities, and its applications, right? So with this introduction, I could say that LabVIEW has applications in these 4 areas: automated test system, automated product design validation, control and monitoring, So automated test system means if in industries, if a system is being developed before deployment, if you want to test the system or intermittently, periodically, if you want to test the functioning of the system, then the devices available with NILabVIEW is capable of testing the systems automatically by acquiring, because the ultimate and most significant feature of NILabVIEW is data acquisition, which is not available in any other platform so effectively. So if you want to test any system before its deployment or after its deployment, so LabVIEW has developed a lot of PXIs platforms which have modules which could acquire the data of the system and which could run multiple multiple test runs continuously on the system automatically, because they have developed devices of high-end computing capacity. And it is not only high-end computing capacity in the sense it could run for longer time, as well as it could run in a deterministic manner. So that is the specialty here. So they have features to develop codes in such a way that we could run the codes in a deterministic manner, and also in a real time means deterministic manner, and also at a faster rate. So when this is available, then automated testing of the system becomes feasible. And product design validation also comes as part of that one, because testing is done only to validate the design, right? And control and monitor, apart from this, mostly in industries, you have we need to control or monitor the industrial processes. As I said before, NI has developed a lot of devices, lot of data acquisition devices, and LabVIEW has a lot of modules, control modules. Even if you take communication or control engineering or your artificial intelligence, it has all the modules available. So it is capable of the software, the code, the application what you develop using this software is capable of control. And also, as I said, it has deterministic nature, and you can have the FPGA, almost most of the coding and you can run the LabVIEW code in the FPGA mode also. This is also well known, right? Though the applications are developed in G code, it is not, because generally when we go for FPGA programming, we need to know about hardware description language. Though we don't, but that is not required when you work in LabVIEW. Though the application developer doesn't know FPGA, doesn't know the hardware description language, that is fine here. You can develop the application using LabVIEW, and that could be converted into a HDL code, and that would be ported into the embedded device, like Rio platform, right? So that will be running in a deterministic manner, and whatever the codes whatever the application that we are developing, it would be able to meet the purpose. And another application that has been widely seen using this LabVIEW platform is condition monitoring of machines or any industrial equipment. So this is the way we like control and monitoring and condition monitoring, testing systems, and product design validation. These are the 4 major areas in which it has its insights. And now, before going into the other technical, because I was told to give some introduction about LabVIEW. So let me start with the G programming language. As we know, we have 2 different kinds of programming languages. One is textual programming language, another is graphical design programming language. And mostly those who work in textual programming language, they don't see this graphical programming language as a at all. But those who work in graphical programming language, they know the importance of this in developing application, developing scientific application. The reason why I will discuss here. Of course, why we go for a programming language? There have been a lot of hierarchy in programming, right? So initially, programming was made using machine codes. Later, we had assembly language. Then we had high-level programming language. So why this hierarchy was there is because we have been looking into the level of abstractions, because the ultimate aim of engineering is to develop applications. So when we do develop applications automatically, that is how we had the hierarchy of engineering applications. So when we want to do the program, when we want to develop applications, we should not tire ourselves in writing very complex programming, very complex coding. We have to focus more on algorithm rather than focusing on the coding part. As a hardware and nowadays, as a cyber physical system engineer, right? Let us say in that term right now. So if that is the task that is required for us, so we go for programming language which has more easier and higher level of abstraction. That is the ultimate aim why we go for a high level programming language at all. So that is how we had the growth from Fortran, which is developed by IBM in 1950 to reduce the number of programming statements. And though there have been a lot of errors during those development time, at last they became successful, and it became as one of the fast and easy execution languages during that period. And later came in 1980 as the principal during his introduction, he told, yeah, of course, that's correct. He was quite doubtful, but of course it's correct. Like it was devised, G code was devised in 1986. And the reason why the G code will have, will have betterment over the textual language in one aspect is, it becomes easy. We need not tire much because we go for higher level. We look for easy development of engineering applications with less complexity and with less complexity in the development, as well as high-end application, right? With a high-end application with a lot of features like data acquisition, interfacing, communication, all those things. So in that aspect, this G code will stand as an equal competitor with the textual programming language. So in G programming language, those who are new to G code, that is graphical programming language, I'm just telling to you just for an introduction, like in your textual programming, in our textual program, text-based languages like C, Java, C, Python, we write the instructions in terms of text using the syntax. And suppose if we want to add two numbers, we give the declaration of the variable as integer, and then we allocate some memory location for storage of the sum, for storage of the added value. A plus B is equal to C means we declare that the type of the variable, whether it's an integer or whether it's a float, textually by using its data type. By using its different programming language have different syntaxes. By using its own syntax, we declare it, and then we execute it. We execute in a sequential manner or in a control flow manner, right? When you have some kind of loop structure or something like that, then the control jumps over. If else statement, some decision making statement, if we get, then the control jumps to the, as per the condition validity, the control jumps to the next part of the code. Whereas here, instead of whatever we declare there as int or text as int, like if we give add-ins, instead of that, here we have, instead of text, we have icons, right? add would be a valid, like suppose add would be a valid function. If add is a valid function, you have written in C, means here you have add as a mathematical function in as a graphical icon, right? So you can pick and place that add symbol, and then you can connect the add symbol is connected, then you can create the variables there. And the type of the variable that you create, the type of variable also is declared when you are creating the variable graphically, and then you can execute it. So here, how the execution, so as you have in your text-based languages, you have constructs here, you have loops, even handling structures, variables, recursions, object query, everything is available here also. The way in which the coding is done is using, like it is done using the wire connectivity and the graphical icons. Select, drag, drop, connect, execute. This is the way in which G programming language will have codings. If you want to develop coding in G programming language, then you have to select, drag it, drop it, then you have to connect as per your algorithm what is required through wires and execute it. I told you it has an on compiler, right? So when you are connecting everything and when you are going to execute, if somewhere, if the declaration has a mismatch, and if you are connected two icons that are not compatible with each other, then there itself it will tell. So now here, the G code executes the data flow. I told you about control flow there, right? Here, the execution in text-based languages, either it could happen, how the execution could happen. It could happen line by line, right? Of course, like interpreter, Python does through interpretation and through interpreter, and others through loop, but it doesn't matter when you go for the logic, right? So it could execute line by line. Also, it could execute as per the control flow. But here in G code, the code gets executed as per the data availability. Suppose here I will show here. Here, this is a snapshot of a G code, right? So here, this is your DAC assistant, Express VI, which is dragged and dropped. To have the DAC assistant, you have to install the corresponding DAC MX driver when you are installing your LabVIEW. It will come automatically, right? So these are all Express VIs. These are all the icons, what I told you. And you will have wires connected between that. And now, data flow means this code will execute this particular node. This code will execute, the whole code will execute as per the data flow, means the data availability. This particular node or VI will execute only when the data comes to this particular node. Only when a data comes to this node, it will start its execution. So that is why we say that the G code is based on data flow. The G code execution is based on data flow. That is, it is data driven. So the flow of data between the nodes will determine the order of execution. So any node will execute only after receiving data from the another node. So if this particular node has to start its execution, then it has to receive the data from this node. So this is the reason why this automatic parallelism and performance has its role. So in your coding, if you have two branches of two parts of coding part, and if you have two branches where the two branches get two different data, then automatically in the same code you can have a parallel execution. That is why in LabVIEW, that is one of the biggest advantages in LabVIEW. That is automatic parallelism and performance. Because the G code functioning execution is based on the data availability. To whichever part of the code the data is available, that particular node will start executing. So how many paths, how many parallel paths it may be, it doesn't matter, which is quite distinct from your textual programming, right? It's text-based programming. I told you that always here you have an integrated compiler that is always on compiler. If you have some semantic or syntactic error, then your code will not be available for execution at all. It will show an error then and there. So it gets compiled. As you develop the coding, the compilation gets happening in the background parallelly. And since it has, as I told you here, the data the LabVIEW supports parallelism, it becomes very convenient for developing FPGA kind of programming using this LabVIEW platform. Probably if somebody has if you have worked in HDL and FPGA kind of programming, then you will know the importance and requirement of this parallelism. Because FPGA is nothing but field programmable gate array, where you have to program the gate array, right? So if you want to do that programming effectively, then obviously you need to have the parallelism. And to what other languages it could combine with. So in older versions, you can see you will have two nodes, even now you have, but now you have more advanced nodes also. In you will have two nodes in LabVIEW, like formula node and math script node. So the formula node, you can type the textual instructions like a C code. It is an inline C it compiles the code like a C compiler, and then it will accept the syntax of C, and also it supports the math script. So you can do the math script in the LabVIEW coding itself, and that would also be executing. So it supports those two through its formula nodes, right? Formula nodes and math script. And it has ActiveX automation, which regulates the communication of data and commands between other Windows-based applications. Because ActiveX, as you know, it would be supporting most of the Windows-based applications. So it has that feature also. Now, these concepts were about LabVIEW. Let's talk about, because now we are living in the era of Industry 4.0, right? It's a fourth industrial revolution. As you know, the first revolution, fourth industrial revolution means we are entering into the cyber physical systems. That's it. So everything has become the first industrial revolution is nothing but whatever that has been done manually has been which has been done through human efforts, have been transformed into kind of an engineering system using using the existing conventional resources like hydro, water, all those things. It has been mechanization has been started. Means engineering has been started. So whatever we need, instead of human labor, we started the mechanization. So that is your first that is called as your first industrial revolution. After some sort of mechanization, then we slowly started producing things, like producing some kind of any kind of product, like in terms of mass production. Instead of handmade, it went to a mass production and other things, which is called as an industry concept started, which is nothing but your second revolution. And in the third revolution, the advent of computer and automation technologies is nothing but your third revolution. So the computers and automation technology are constrained to the applications what it is executing. You have embedded devices, all those are constrained to the particular application. And in the fourth, we have, rather than such kind of devices or systems, we have the cyber physical systems. Means So what is cyber physical? Cyber physical system is any system which is capable of computing as well as communication with external entity in such a way that the performance of the system and also the utility of the engineering utility of the system has been enhanced. If that is the if we meet that kind of system, then that is nothing but your cyber physical system, right? So now to the existing system, we add the capabilities, we add the smartness to the system by incorporating communication, computation, and also control strategies into that in such a way that the performance is enhanced and also the engineering utility is increased. So this is the cyber physical system. Everything, like now whatever the system that are existing currently are being transformed into such fashion. That is where you have the digital transformation. That is why we get into the concepts of digital transformation. What are the systems that are already existing in your industry, in our industries, which are called as the operation technology assets? Like in our industry 3.0, we had computer and automation of lot of devices which are available in the industries, which we have inherited from industrial second revolution of industry 2.0. So computation and automation facility has been introduced, and that has been your third revolution. And to that third revolution, additional the devices that are available in third revolution are called as your operation technology assets. So to this operation technology assets, the information technology has been infused. So thus the convergence of operational assets with information technology becomes the industrial IoT platform. So that is where the digital transformation is getting momentum. So why we are moving towards this is because of the advancement in the electronics and communication. That is the ultimate reason. So we have industrial IoT platform now, which is capable of, in which the devices are capable of computing at high capacity, like you can say at high capacity in the sense at faster rate and faster voluminous computation and effective, powerful computation, all those things we can say. So here you have the concept, when you go into that, then automatically the devices, whatever that are available, whatever the devices they are delivering some kind of performance in the industries, those devices could be monitored more effectively, controlled more effectively, because the devices are capable of communicating with other devices. So there comes the reduction in the human intervention, because the device itself is capable of communicating, the cyber physical system. Now the operational assets are getting digitally transformed into cyber physical systems. So those systems are capable of computing as well as communication. So computing, in the sense, it's not like a simple computation. It has because of the advanced development of the your controller architectures, you have high-end capacity. And also, as you increase the computing capacity, you can do anything with the coding, and it can also be able to communicate. So it is capable of assessing itself, monitoring itself, and also it is capable of exchanging the information with the external world, in the sense, other than it with the nearby systems, which is an advanced version of automation, which is available in the industry third revolution of the third industrial revolution. So thus you have this industrial 4.0 with lot of analytics of the data, system data, as well as coordinated control among themselves. So the SCADA, the supervisory control and data acquisition, which had human intervention, which had a lot of human intervention, could be taken to the cloud as such, and you can have a lot of data. The entire enterprise data could be taken to the cloud, because you need a lot of memory storage to handle all the data. So that is why we go for the cloud, and you will have a big data with a lot of volume, velocity, variety, and variation, and you will have a lot of big data, and you can execute algorithms in a cognitive sense, right? So this is what is your industry 4.0. So the design principles of industry is like the operational assets have intelligence and communication, so that it has the capability for interoperability. And because it has these features, it has the capability for interoperability. Interoperability is known to you, it's well known, right? So the communication has extended from, is not restricted within a particular local area. It could be taken to any place, anywhere in the globe through internet. So obviously you have the concept of Internet of Things coming into Industry 4.0. So interoperability, virtualization. Virtualization is quite somewhat linked to digital twin also. So here in virtualization, what is done is the sensor data is taken to the plant model, that is a plant that has been modeled virtually through simulation, and you have a lot of plant modeling. Even Siemens have a lot of plant modeling platforms. So they adopt that one generally, right? So they are getting into digital twin also right now. So you have, once the communication and computation is in the hands, then everything is possible. Decentralization, decision making, because they could interact among themselves. They could interact about their condition among themselves. So through artificial intelligence algorithm, they are capable of classifying whether they are safe or not. They are capable of predicting what will happen to me, what will happen to the particular system which is running in one end of the industry, what will happen to the gear condition, what will happen to its manufacturing product condition, based on the data and a history of the data that has been recorded. It is capable of predicting, it is capable of classifying with the availability of the data that has been stored. So thus it could make with the intelligence that has been, with the decision making intelligence that has been introduced, it could make a decision on its own. It is not necessary that it should be a supervisory control and data acquisition. It could be a decentralized control. Like from a supervisory control, it has gone to decentralization, right? So this is like this. You have some other feature also, like service orientation. Like if someone needs something else, like your AI algorithm is running in cloud, or your the data is being exchanged by the operational assets. Cloud could be also, you can have a question like, if it is cloud, means it is going to be an external infrastructure. So is it safe, or what will happen if the internet is going wrong? Even cloud also you could establish. Right now, those arguments have vanished actually. The loss of internet connectivity, those gets applied only for very, 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 very mission critical application. Other than that, the adoption of cloud and IoT is widely welcome now. And so the cloud also, it is not necessary that it should be always a public cloud. It can be a private cloud also. So it could offer a lot of services. So it could offer services to other companies also. Suppose if Siemens or National Instruments develop a lot of hardware. Suppose if they want to provide services based on the condition of the hardware, or if they want to do predictive maintenance of the hardware, then they could do it through the cloud itself. They can do it. So these are all the features, options that are available because of the nature of the cyber physical system. Because cyber physical system means it has computation, communication in such a way that engineering could be achieved more effectively. In earlier days also computation was there, communication was there, but the effectiveness of that matters a lot due to the presence of high-end embedded processes and also the programming features. Of course, this real-time capability, modularity will become part of Industry 4.0 because they are capable of exchanging its data. So in real time, it has to collect data, it is going to analyze, it is going to collect, analyze, exchange, and then it's going to do all those things. So whatever we speak in Industry 4.0 is because of the data exchange between the systems autonomously, right? Of course, still it is not, we haven't entered into that phase in 100%, but still this is the concept towards which we are moving. That is digital transformation. So the system data, first of all, it has to be available. For the system data to be available, if you have a system, and if the system is giving any kind of physical, you can take a car or you can take a machine or any kind of system, the data, first of all, the condition of the system, the state of the system should be first of all acquired inherently by the operational asset, inherently by the system that is present in the industry or anywhere. So the data acquisition concept is very important in Industry 4.0. So the physical parameters have to be acquired from the system by installing the sensors, as we know very well, corresponding sensors, and the sensor data should be read by the data acquisition device. As I told you earlier, LabVIEW environment is famous for instrumentation control, data acquisition, and monitoring applications. So data acquisition, why it is very famous is because the hardware they have for data acquisition has a very high-end signal conditioning modules and fastly running analog to digital converters. So it is capable of sampling the physical data at higher rate. As we know by Nyquist criteria, as we sample more and more, we will get more replication of the actual physical signal. And signal conditioning plays a very high important role because it almost removes all the noise available in the environment. So it filters, it has a very good signal conditioning circuitry. That is the reason it is quite costly also, and that is the reason it has more reliability in the application development. So we have, these are all the different kinds of, these are just simple 3 or 4 devices I have just given for your for an idea, like Rio platform, PXI systems and PC-based systems. As I told you, this PXI system has a lot of importance in testing part, and Rio, reconfigurable input-output system, which has high modularity. You can you will have an embedded platform in Linux actually. You'll have an embedded processor, ARM processor, which is running over Linux platform, which is running Linux OS, embedded Linux OS, and hence it acts like a mini computer only. Actually, not only mini computer. Actually, it acts like it is a wonderful processor because it executes the it executes in the FPGA also, real-time mode also. It will execute. It has two kinds of mode of operation. One is RT mode and FPGA mode. So as I told you in FPGA, I gave you some introduction before. So when you run a code in FPGA mode, it will be very faster than your RT, right? And so that is the reason why it will meet the real-time requirements, which is one of the important features that we have seen in Industry 4.0 design principle. So the Industry 4.0 design principle requires real-time capability, interoperability, and what else? Of course, it has to interop, and just I'll give you some kind of virtualization. And all these features will bring into the decentralization concept. So Rio has all those features. So it is capable. You can have, as per the system requirement, you can change the modules. It has modularity. It could be capable of communicating with different kinds of industrial communication interfaces like Profibus and Profibus Ethernet, like USB. It has high-speed USB and Modbus, and even your CS, you'll have serial also, and it almost has all the communication interfaces. Similarly, a PC-based system is quite different from like it. This system will not get executed as a standalone system. Instead of that, it will execute with the help of the PC. That is why it is called as a PC-based system. Whereas Compact Rio can run in a standalone mode also. Once you develop the application, test it, and you can deploy it in a standalone mode. And here, so we may have a question: or all these devices are can they be configured? Can they be communicated only with G code or not? So it is not like that. You can even Python has developed a lot of packages. Python has developed packages such that it can it can interact with the DAC MX driver, and it could read the data. Python program could read the data from the data acquisition devices, NI data acquisition devices. So I'll tell you, so with this discussion, what we have made, suppose, let us take, we have a condition monitoring system. And if I want to make the existing condition monitoring system in such a way that I could reduce the downtime of the system and reduce the, this is my challenge, this is my requirement, means the challenge. I wanted to reduce the downtime of the system. So obviously when condition monitoring, every one of you will know, right? Because condition monitoring is monitoring the condition of the system, whether it's working properly or not, whether it is going to the faulted mode, or after it has become faulted. Earlier it was like that kind of reactive maintenance, preventive maintenance, and nowadays it's like predictive maintenance. So let us say we have a condition monitoring system in an industry. So the purpose of the condition monitoring system, these are all the purpose, like to monitor the condition and to avoid the faults, right? So mostly earlier it was like a reactive maintenance. It will become faulted, after that it would be corrected. When it becomes faulted, it will be disconnected such that the other systems are not affected. In preventive maintenance, what will happen is that is instead of that, like once we'll try to predict, like it is not like complete prediction, but we'll try to avoid it, right, by having periodic monitoring. But When you do periodic monitoring, you have to call the maintenance engineer and you have to shut down the system, and you have to test the system for some time. And then you have to do the validation that the system is working fine, and then only you can continue its running. Suppose if I want to avoid those things, so that when I do the maintenance also, when I do such kind of maintenance in higher enterprises, in large enterprises, it will lead to a lot of losses because of the reduce. Even small shutdown time will cause the production rate to get reduced enormously. So, and also beyond that, other systems will also be affected. So ultimately, it will reduce the revenue loss also. So if I want to decrease the unanticipated, sometimes it may go, sometimes fault may all happen all of a sudden unanticipatedly because it is not monitored continuously. If I want to reduce the unanticipated downtime and the maintenance expenses, whatever I said to you, right? And if I want to provide a complete picture of machine operation and state, wherever I go, or sometimes sometimes the engineer may move, or sometimes the equipment may move. So wherever it is, I wanted to have such kind of monitoring. I wanted to have a monitoring in such a way that I can reduce the downtime and I can minimize the expenses, and also I can improve the uptime of the system, right? So if that is, and if the system is also mobile, and if I have multiple systems spread over the same kind of system spread over the, if I have, like, let us take an oil and gas industry, or let us take many industries are spread over at different places, like mining industry, all those things, right? So if I want to have a condition monitoring system to meet these objectives, then what I would require is I have to monitor at multiple sites simultaneously. And also with the monitored data, I should be able to execute, I should be able to find out the insight. Like as we get the fever or something like that, the doctors would be diagnosing the different kinds of symptoms, and they will give appropriate medication to us so that we are not getting into any kind of disease, right? Getting into major what to say, we are some kind of fatigue condition. So monitoring of equipment state to predict the failure. So with the data available, I have to make an insight about I have to make a prediction. I have to make an insight that, okay, this part of the system is good. So I have to make a prediction. Once I make the prediction, or I means here the system has to make a prediction. Once a prediction is made, if the system keeps with itself, then there is no use of it. Then an alert has to be set in such so that corrective action could be taken before it becomes out of order. So this is the solution which is required out of it. So if I have to make in such a way, then I have to bring the condition monitoring system into an online condition monitoring system. Moreover, online condition monitoring system means it is going to be a real-time condition monitoring system. So the data has to be acquired in real time. The data has to be processed. If I'm acquired in real time means it has to be continuously monitored. So a lot of data will be available. So the data size will be high. So you need a memory storage for that. And also you have to acquire the data at continuous rates. Sampled intervals. Sampled intervals or designated intervals as per the requirement. And after I have to analyze the data, and then I have to send an intimation about the decision. So if these things have to be done, then we need to have computation, we need to have data acquisition from different locations within an environment, within an industry itself. We can have different devices. So you have to acquire the data from different devices, different sites, and then you have to process it and predict it, and then give the information. So now, if we'll check whether NI LabVIEW has such kind of feature or not. With the Stereo, what I have told you, the Stereo is a modular device which has modular input-output modules. And as I told you, the Stereo has a high-end embedded controller which runs a Linux operating system, which runs the Linux OS. And here the Stereo has multiple communication interfaces too. So the Stereo's kappa base can act as a cyber physical system. So the Stereo could acquire the data from this industrial equipment dynamically. Dynamically means at any time, right? Dynamically. And this controller, the equipment data is also passed, and the controller data is also taken to the Stereo through Modbus, because Stereo has, as I told you, Stereo has different kinds. So here Modbus is shown. Instead of Modbus, it could be Ethernet also, right? So it could be CAN also, controller area network, anything, right? So here, or Profibus. So here the Stereo could be able to get the information from the operational technology asset. It could acquire the data, it could process the G code that is running in Stereo. The G code could convert its application code into FPG also. That doesn't matter. But now, when we talk about programming in LabVIEW, we talk about G code. That's it, right? So now the G code will have different kind of algorithms that is running. And it could do the edge computing here itself, and then it could send some only important information to this Insights SCM's server, condition monitoring server, Insight condition monitoring server, which is available with the NI LabVIEW itself, right? NI platform, right? Now, so the Stereo could send its data to NI server, Insight CM's condition monitoring server, so which will store in a data repository or database repository or as a file, or it could show, it could analyze, and all this stuff are there in this Insight CM server itself. And it could send an email. So this is a kind of an architecture. So here it is not only from this Insight CM server is capable of collecting the data from N sites. Globally it could connect. So it is like a client and server architecture, right? So request response architecture also you can see in the context of web, right? So this is the kind of architecture that LabVIEW could support. Other than this, it also has the OPC, like OPC support also. OPC means it is OLE for process control. So there are different kinds of devices that could support. It is not only, it is a general server, right? OPC support means you can have OPC client and server. As I told you here this is an Insight CM server, and this is the Stereo, which is capable of connecting to the Insight CM server over internet, right? Similarly, you have OPC also. So in OPC, how communication is established between two entities or two devices or in the aspects of OPC client and OPC server. The LabVIEW application, what you develop in a particular device, you can develop in that particular LabVIEW application. You can configure it as an OPC client, and that particular LabVIEW application can contact the OPC server. Any other device, let us say a PLC, you have any PLC or any other device which is of any other automation control which is of different manufacturer also. The PLC could be from Siemens or Allen Bradley or somebody else, right? So that PLC will also industrially, this OPC standard is industrially accepted standard. So here there are two ways in which OPC could be used. OPC could be used for devices to communicate with each other, or for device to communicate with HMI, or for device to communicate with the remote device. In those manners it could be used, because when you have different the main advantage, what I'll tell you, the main advantage of OPC is if you have two devices of two different manufacturers, and if you don't have a common communication interface, compatible communication interface, then OPC is a better choice, is a good choice, because most of the industrial equipments will support this option. So OPC server, how the two different devices could communicate with each other is, here I have written as HMI or PLC. Similarly, you can have any two devices, how they could communicate is, here we are talking about LabVIEW application, right? So suppose if I have a NI LabVIEW application running in Serio, which wants to connect with the PLC of Siemens, right? Suppose if both of them have to talk with each other, have to share the data between each other, then the NI LabVIEW application could configure itself as an OPC client and then connect with an OPC server. And the PLC also can connect with that particular OPC server. So both of them will be sharing the data. Both the devices will be sharing the data through this OPC server. So for that, LabVIEW has this DSC module. The data logging and supervisory control module gives all these features. About this module is generally for logging data to a networked historical database, which is also possible with OPC server. And real-time historical trending. As I told you, management of alarms, security, networking, LabVIEW, real-time targets, all these things are possible with data logging and supervisory control, as well as it could help in communication with the OPC, using the OPC support also. So hence, if you want the devices to talk with each other, then OPC also is a better choice, which the LabVIEW offers. As I told you, in Industry 4.0, interoperability is also one of the important design principles. So how you could, I'll just probably in the other sessions, when the other sessions are going on with the hands-on and specifically for LabVIEW application development, you can go through in detail about how to develop this. I have just shown you a snapshot of this one, just for your understanding, just for comprehension. I have showed you. Like if you have a project here, if you have a LabVIEW project and you can develop, you can you can create a input-output server and you can create a OPC client. You can configure the OPC client and you can choose the OPC server. Here it is OPC server, and you can choose update rate also, means the rate at which the client has to update the data to the OPC server. So suppose the PLC programming, as if you have done programming in PLC or anything else, you might be using their own custom based tags or custom based registers, Modbus, and you will have custom. Each device will have their own custom based tags and registers. Particularly PLC, they talk about only tags. So that particular tag means for each temperature. Suppose a PLC is there or PAC is there, they want to measure the temperature or something like that, then they will name that way. Tags are nothing but variables. Simple, that's it. So you will have different kinds of variables in the system, and the system has to communicate those variables to another system through OPC means. Then the system will update its values of the tag, its tag values, variable values to the OPC server at a specified data rate, at any required data rate, and based on so that value, that tag value will be passed on to the next system. How this happens in LabVIEW is through this shared variable engine. So the shared, the name itself shows it is a shared variable engine. So it is a separate service that is installed when the LabVIEW is installed. It comes as part of the package itself, and it will be available for us to utilize when we are doing the coding. So this uses the concept of publish subscribe protocol. Means, as I told you, like two devices, if they have to communicate with each other about its status, about its temperature, one has to send the data to another means. That system will first publish the temperature variable in the shared variable. How to create everything you can see in the later portion of the classes, course of this particular course, or you can go through if on your own also, because LabVIEW is a very user-friendly software like MATLAB, but you have distinct variations between MATLAB and LabVIEW. Each have its own, each one of it is powerful in its own area. But broadly for application development, the real-time hardware, software communication, all those stuff, you can find LabVIEW as more powerful. Now here you have a shared variable, and this shared variable you are writing the data, and this shared variable 2 is reading the data, and then it is passing to this, and then it's available. So these two are not of the same system. These two variables are available in different systems, right? So this is publish, subscribe, protocol. Of course, this is the way in which communication happens in SVE. Shared variable engine. So this shared variable, how you can take the value of the shared, the another way in which you can read the data of different system using is using data socket. Put the variable name in the socket, and it can read it, and you can display or use it, and then you can close it. And DSC tag, DSC, data logging and supervisory control, I told you, right? So they have a tag API. Tag is nothing but a variable which is available in, mostly tags are used in PLC. So this tag you can take from these are all inbuilt functions available in the DSC module in LabVIEW, right? So you can drag that, you can take that, drag it, place it, give the variable that you want to read it. If a lot of more values are continuous, 100, I told you 100 milliseconds, right? If 100, so for 1 second, you will get almost 10 values, right? So 10 values means you will put it in a loop. After that is done, then you will close the tag. So this is a graphical coding which is used for a for loop, which you will be studying, right? This is a structure, for loop, continuous for loop structure. This is a while loop structure, right? And so far I have been talking about OPC and client server architecture, and the next level is your cloud. So this is the next level in which communicate. As I told you, when you have a big enterprise, or if you're monitoring continuously, or if you have less computational capacity for running artificial intelligence algorithm or any kind of algorithm, then you have to take the data to the cloud. So you have to connect the system, connect the entity, connect the enterprise or any particular system, you have to connect to the cloud. So there, when you are connecting, it is going to become a cyber physical system. When you are connecting, it is going to get high. It is going to get transformed into an Internet of Things. Suppose this is an illustration that is given for weather system update, right? So here you have, these are all within the LAN area, and this is in the cloud. So why this is given in the reason why it is given in the cloud is for analytics, for doing some management and monitoring, for making analytics, using the large data that is gathered through this database. From this database, this is a local SQL server, which is local database. And suppose if you are doing continuous monitoring, you will have a lot of data, so it has to be pushed to the cloud database. So you can connect the local database to the cloud database, and also whatever we have shared with the OPC also you can take it to the cloud. And in the cloud you can do the analytics, and then from the cloud you can again send it to the user end. So now here, thus from enterprise automation, you are moving into the global architecture using the cloud platform. So does LabVIEW support this one? Is the question, right? If we ask that one, yes, LabVIEW is supporting it. So because it is capable of the devices, whatever I said, right? The Rio platform are all capable of getting connected with the internet, and they are all capable of handling the uh, web-based protocols, cloud protocols. So we'll be able to develop web service also. Because of time shortage, I didn't cover the web service. You'll be able to develop web service also. And you have the device, in LabVIEW, you have third-party tools that support the database connectivity to the cloud, and also that support the IoT protocols which connect to the cloud, through which the devices connect to the cloud. So about like as I told, when any particular system is getting connected to the cloud through internet, then obviously it is becoming an Internet of Things. So Internet of Things is nothing but interconnection of the computing devices via internet. So again, cyber physical system and Industry 4.0. So this is an example, like I have just given an illustration about an architecture. Like you have this data acquisition devices, and the DAC-MX driver helps in acquiring the data from this data acquisition device, and it stores in the, this is happening locally. It stores in the SQL server, and you can again, from this you can again take it to the cloud, or you can take it to any other system. It depends on the application, choice of application, what you are choosing, right? So database connectivity, all those modules are available in LabVIEW platform itself. So as I told you, if you want to connect this local database to the cloud database also, it's possible. So you can connect through the database connectivity tools, you can do that one. So here the local database is taken. Here SQL is shown. Actually, I didn't have the coding here, but I have just taken the snapshot, right? So now, okay. Industry 4.0 we were talking about, right? So Industry 4.0 means all the devices are capable of having communication and computation. Now, we are talking about whether LabVIEW supports these things. So far, we have seen about the processing, that is the features that are available with LabVIEW for communication, for communicating between each other through OPC, and also through client-server architecture, through web service. And beyond this, when you pass the alarms after these analytics, when you want to pass the alarms in a mobile manner, right, then obviously you should have the connectivity with the mobile phones. So LabVIEW has that feature too. It has data dashboard, through which you do not have any kind of mobile programming as you do in your J2ME or other programming language. You have their own conventional data dashboard, their own compatible data dashboard, which you can install in the iPad or Android mobile phones. So that data dashboard will have shared variables, network published shared variables. The data dashboard is capable of acquiring the network published, reading the network published shared variables. I told you about the concept of shared variables before. The same concept gets applied here. So here, this is your data dashboard. After you install in your mobile, you will have the data dashboard. In this data dashboard, you will be able to read the shared variable, any particular shared variable for which the application is, which you want to read, and you will have the indicators and control and other, like how you have to configure and how you have to do all these selections are available, like indicators, controllers, web services, all those are available. So you can be able to read the alarm or decision or any particular status of the system, which is identified by the LabVIEW application in a mobile device, also. So the data dashboard helps in that. So suppose if you have the value y, the shared variable y has received the value 1, like 1 amp or something, 1 decibel or something like that, then that is displayed. That could be even visualized here. That could be read here that could be read in the data dashboard, and it could also be visualized. So the concept is shared variable engine, shared variables. So before you conclude, I hope when you go for, before you conclude this short-term course, you try to study about, you try to know the features of utilizing in addition to other modules in this aspect I'm telling. Of course, signal processing, a lot of other modules, communication, other modules are equally important. But in this aspect, you try to go through these features what I have discussed too, so that you will know about, you can see, you will be able to develop real-time applications such that it meets the requirement of Industry 4.0 technology. So once you do that, then you can have smart home, smart grid, smart surveillance, traffic management, smart shopping, healthcare, agriculture and industrial automation. All these stuff are possible. So these are the references which I have cited here. But still you have a lot of white papers and you have a lot of web content. And more than everything, you have LabVIEW Help itself, where you can see in and out about the module, functionality of the VA is available there. So I hope you would be convinced that LabVIEW would be helpful for Industry 4.0. I don't know whether you're convinced or not, but definitely I can assure you that it will help in developing in the Industry 4.0 application. Probably you can try any Rio platform, any Rio, and you can convert that to an IoT device, and then you can do the programming and see. Definitely you can explore a lot of things. I didn't cover WSN here, but even your WSN gateway could be connected to the Rio platform, and that could be taken to the cloud also. So it's all in the hands of the application what you intend to develop, and the choice of protocols what you want to make, the way in which, whether you are going to use OPC or whether you are going to use client server architecture, whether you are going to use what kind of cloud platform you are going to use. And I could say one more thing also, all cloud platforms, sometimes you may not be able to connect with all the cloud platforms. You may have some challenges, but that you will learn when you start developing the applications. But still, most of the things are possible. And with that, definitely you could be able to develop a smart application that I could assure and assure 100%, and I have done that also. So thank you. And if you have any doubts or if you want to have any kind of discussion, you can please feel free to discuss with me. I'm stopping my presentation. Yeah, Mr. Someone has raised the hand, Mohan Kumar CR. Can you please unmute yourself and can make a conversation? Am I audible? Wait, should I unmute or something like that? What show? Anything? Any doubts? Any discussions in the chats? Have I got anything? If you have any doubts, you can put it in the chat too.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
I think Mohan Kumar has raised his hand, but I'm not able to unmute him. Does he has any question, ma'am?
Please unmute and ask question.
Dear Mohan Kumar, are you available?
Okay, any other participant is having any other questions?
Participants, if you have any queries or questions, please put it in the chat section. Sir, can you conclude? Ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think we can conclude. Uh, we don't have any questions here.
Okay, ma'am, fine.
Yeah, so we are pleased to have you as our session speaker, and thank you for your valuable contribution, and also grateful for the time and effort you are put to share your knowledge and experience on library. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
I would like to thank our HOD, Dr. Nagesh KN, Professor and HOD, Department of ACE and CET. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam.
Last but
shall I-
yes, yes, ma'am.
So can I leave the call?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you very much, madam. Thank you very much.
Last but not the least, I wholeheartedly thank all the teaching and non-teaching fraternity and the participants to this STTP on behalf of NCET. Thank you, one and all. So we are winding up this session. We can join back at for the second session that will be at 11:30. Thank you, everyone.
Dear faculty members, 11:30 we will be having next session. Please try to attend, faculty members. Those who are present only, we can give the e-certificate, dear faculty members.
Sir, any feedback from sir?
Madam, everything will be given, madam. Everything will be given in the group, madam.
In the group, in the WhatsApp group.
Madam.
Okay, sir. Always you will give the feedback form in WhatsApp group, is it, sir?
Yes, madam. Sure, madam. Sure.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
I hope everyone have filled the attendance link, which is shared in the chat section. So again, we will join it for the second session that will be at 11:30. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.